Well, hey there. It's Monday and time for Monday Mastery. I'm dating coach Rick Sodabeer, and I'm broadcasting from my cave, my acoustical cave in Oklahoma. So anyway, I hope you guys, ladies, I hope you had a great. I think I forgot to wish you all a happy Mother's Day last time or a time before. I can't remember. Hope you had a great weekend and you're getting ready to have having a great start to the week. I know it's been beautiful here in Oklahoma, northeastern Oklahoma. And it was in the low 80s today. The humidity is down, and it's just awesome. So, the today's question is about narcissists, and have you dated one, and or have you been married to one? And it seems to be a lightning rod for comment today. I've received make an adjustment here. Felt like I was sitting half off my chair, and anyway, so it's a hot topic. And one of the things that I've learned in studying about narcissism and narcissists is that number one, it is a psychological disorder and it has to be diagnosed. We can throw the term around quite a bit, just because of the tendencies certain people have. Hey, Terry, thanks for joining in. Awesome. Terry says she put it on her calendar this week so she wouldn't miss it. Terrific. Thank you. Glad you're here. And so we have to be careful about throwing around you calling somebody a narcissist. Now, will they have narcissistic tendencies? Absolutely, and there's a lot of them. So you can have a couple of these things and kind of be tagged as a narcissist. So we have to be a little bit careful there. So, but there are, regardless of whether they're classified, they're medically classified as a narcissist, or we just see a lot of those characteristics in them. They can do a lot of damage to a relationship. And that was witnessed by some of the people that reached out to me. A couple of people reached out to me. Hey, Debbie, thanks for joining in. Debbie says, I married and divorced one. And that was a common comment that I received. Hey, Paul, thanks for joining in. Paul is in Iowa, and I'll be passing through Iowa in about 2 weeks. So anyway, I hope you're having some good weather up there. And so anyway, there were quite a few comments on people that have married and divorced narcissists, and it can be a bit difficult to detect. But if you're paying attention, you should see it fairly quickly. And I think the key with any narcissistic relationship is to exit that relationship as quickly as possible. And narcissists or people with narcissistic tendencies can present themselves as a fantastic catch. It's one of the things that I was reading is one of the articles I was reading is what are they on paper? They have it all. They have a fantastic career, they have money, they have success, they may be very attractive, but it's all an outward show. And I've worked with several people that have been involved with narcissistic people, and or people with narcissistic traits, and it is just brutal for them to leave these relationships because they want to love this person because there's so many great things, but they get beat down, they get emotionally abused, because shortly after the relationship starts, they start changing their what is it I'm trying to say? Their traits or their characteristics start to change. And Elizabeth says, yes, I had him take an MMPI. He showed narcissistic tendencies. I stuck with him, but finally I ended the relationship and lived in peace. And that's, Elizabeth, that is so common to what people have told me. I've never been in that 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 type of relationship, so I'm taking everybody's word for it. Everything that I've read, it's just a very, very toxic relationship. And it isn't until they've drawn you in, they've got your emotions, they've sucked you into their world. Then they start changing and start changing the rules of the game, and pretty soon you start questioning your own sanity. They start gaslighting you. Everything becomes your problem, or your fault. I should rephrase that. And it's an emotionally brutal relationship. And as hard as you might try, there's nothing that you're going to be able to do to satisfy this person or to make this relationship right. They're going to, initially they what is the term? Love bomb. They love bomb you. And that means they're sending you sweet texts, they're sending you gifts, they're giving you compliments, and it's just an overwhelming amount of overwhelming amount of positive attention. But that's how they draw you in. And Sandra says maybe traumas. Yeah, and it actually does become a trauma, and in living with these people, and trying to exit the relationship, because everything you do ends up being wrong. Or even if you're doing the right thing, they make you feel that you're somehow at fault for their problems. And and because of how they present themselves in the beginning, it's so easy to get sucked in. But the a couple of things that I want you all to pay attention to, so that you can avoid these types of relationships. And those of you that have been in them, you know what I'm talking about. You've experienced this, so hopefully you don't get sucked into this type of relationship again. When somebody's overly complimentary, when somebody's again love bombing you, that should start putting up or start sending up red flags, and it should cause you to want to back away. Your natural instinct should be I just had a weird thought. For any of you that are old enough to remember Lost in Space, this is the robot. Warning, danger, Will Robinson. The arms flailing. Those are the kinds of scenes that should come to your mind. And you should be you should be stepping back and being prepared, or preparing to walk away from this relationship, because the worst time to figure it out is after you've been sucked in, after you've been there 6 months, a year, 2 years. Then you're an emotional wreck. You have very little confidence left. I worked with a gal that he literally tried to set, and he was pretty effective at it. He separated her from most of her friends and family. He even wanted her to leave her son, her 16-year-old son, at home, and have her move 2 hours away to be with him. And what kind of a guy does that? So she couldn't have any friends other than his friends. And so it's just an ever increasing pile of problems. And so it's uh, and she was in so deep. She had been in this relationship for several years, and it was so hard for her to walk away. She eventually did, and it took her a long time. And several of you that have reached out to me and left messages or comments on my Facebook page have said the same thing. It's taken time to heal and recover from that, and it is abuse. It takes time to recover from any form of abuse, but this is quite insidious, and it just comes on so incrementally, just a fraction at a time, and unless you take a step back regularly, it just sneaks up on you, and pretty soon you're ensnared ensnared in all of their drama and their issues, and you pretty soon you're left with no self confidence. You may have commingled assets or gotten rid of your assets, and then you're left struggling trying to figure out how to survive. And Terry says, I never have dated one, but I have a friend that did for some time. She would break up, but kept going back. She finally got into a support group and have been away from him for almost a year now. Yeah, and Terry, that's a great observation when you see that happen to a friend, and that's basically what my friend did, and it was kind of revolving door relationship, and she told me some stories about this guy, that she would leave him, break up with him, and he'd call her and say, you're and she and let me set the stage here. She is an absolutely gorgeous woman. She's a former model, takes very good care of herself, and he would call her and say, you're just too ugly. Nobody else is going to want you. You might as well come back to me. And it was a continual beatdown like this. And, she questions her own ability. She questions her own looks. And I know we all question our own looks, but this is so brutal that people that have been subjected to this just don't recognize how abused they're being. And it takes friends from the outside to tell them, no, you are beautiful. No, you have to stop listening to him. And it can be a her. We typically think of it as guys that do this, but women do it too. I had a couple of guys reach out to me, and David, I hope you're on here tonight, and because David, he was on a couple of weeks ago, and he suggested this topic, so I'm hoping he's here. And I know there's a couple of other guys on here. Maybe Glenn is on here. I think he's had a couple of relationships that have been narcissistic in nature. Hey, Barbara, thanks for joining in. And Barbara says, that's what happened to me. He just kept saying I was crazy and just can't see it. And and exactly. And Barbara, thanks for sharing that. And I know how what a challenge it's been for you over the last couple of years since your divorce. And Barbara and I have worked together a little bit along the way in getting her past that relationship and getting her to the healthy side, so to speak. Hey, Addie, thanks for joining in. Glad you're here. So, and the wounds. And the longer you're there, and correct me if I'm wrong, Barbara, I think you said you were with your ex for, is it 30 years or 40 years? And the abuse that one takes in that amount of time has just got to be, oh, I just can't imagine. And so, that literally takes time to move past. And if any of you are struggling with that, seeking good counseling, good Christian counselors. And Barbara says married 44, but dated 2 years. So that's 46 years you were together. If I'm doing that, if I'm getting your math correct, and 46 years with somebody like that, it can just leave you overwhelmed and wondering what value you have in life. And if any of you are in a relationship like that, if you're afraid to say anything publicly, reach out to me, and I'll be happy to do what I can. If we need to get you counseling, reach out to me. I'll help you find good Christian counselors in your area. And to help you break that cycle and to help you get away, because there's never a relationship. You'll never be able to have a successful, healthy relationship with a narcissist or somebody that has narcissistic tendencies. And so when any of this starts coming on, it's red flags should be waving, and your gut instinct should be saying, yeah, this just doesn't feel right. And if it doesn't feel right, then it's time to walk away. And I'm a big fan of walking away, and not just for any reason. I mean, there are little things that we're all going to disagree on, and we're all going to have problems somewhere along the way. But when they start telling you that you're stupid, when they start telling you that you're crazy, when they start telling you that you can't do anything without them, you're in a narcissistic relationship, and you need to move on. Again, it all starts wonderfully with like I said, texts, the loving texts and presence and compliments, and it's exhaustive and exhausting. So, but there are some things that you can watch for, and we'll start going through those. Hey, Vicky, thank you for joining in. And Vicky says, "Oh yes, I was married to one for like 15 years. Yeah, that's a long time to be mired in that kind of a relationship." And one of the some of the things that we need to look out for when we're starting to date again is someone that takes control of the conversation. If you're in the middle of a story or talking to somebody, and they come in and hijack the conversation, that would be a clue. And they do it consistently. Now, some people, there's going to be times when somebody walks up and has something to say, and unintentionally disrupts the conversation. But when they do it consistently, that's a clue that there should be red flags flying. A lack of empathy. They just don't care about anybody else's feelings but their own. They can hurt somebody's feelings, and they just don't care. They can say, suck it up, buttercup. And and we all say that from time to time in mostly a joking way. But there are times that when they tell you to suck it up, in relation to and in combination with these other things, it becomes again, red flags. I wish, here, I've got a red envelope. Red flags should be should be waving. Again, gaslighting, a superiority complex. They're better than anyone else, and nothing is ever their fault. And if anything goes wrong, regardless of whose fault it is, it's your fault if you're in that relationship. So there are so many warning flags. There may be the sign that they only want to associate with a certain level of people that they deem that are their equals, or their or better, um, or they're equally special like they are. They exaggerate their achievements and talents. They expect to be recognized as superior, even without achievements that warrant the recognition. And so these are just some of the things, some of the red flags to be reckoned with here. And Elizabeth says he used the Bible and the fact he was born again to appear greater than thou. I didn't buy into it. And I can only imagine. That one just blows me away. And I understand what you're saying. And then it, I want to say that then it's up to you to start using the Bible to derail his argument. But the reality is, there's nothing that you can do or say that is going to change his mind. And it's that's one of those. It's a lose situation no matter what you do. And Elizabeth, I just can't imagine the toxicity in your household. Barbara, the same thing with you. And for those of you, hopefully there's a few of you out there that haven't chimed in yet, that have written to me today, and I won't name your names, but if you're listening, and feel like sharing some tidbits here, please do. Because it's beneficial to all of us that have not experienced that type of thing. Uh, some of the other things that you should be looking out for: envious of all others, and believe others envy them. There's a lot of envy and trying to trying to be as good or better than everybody else. That they look at what other people have and think they should have it. Vicky. Vicky says, my ex was naturally good at condescending and degrading me. He would poke fun at me in front of our kids. And I'm going to stop right there, Vicky, because that can be a big sign right there, is thinking they're funny at your expense. I mean, we all get poked fun of from time to time, but when it's a regular event, and it's no longer funny, but what they think is funny is actually very, very hurtful. I was no good, didn't do anything right, never measured up. He'd tell the kids to say, "Dad is the greatest," and laugh about it. He never saw that any of this was wrong. Thankful that God opened my eyes and that I got away when I did. My best wisdom is to get away from them now, because it only gets worse. That's absolutely right. It never gets easy. It never gets easier later on. And regardless of what the relationship is, hey Teresa, thanks for joining in. Glad to see you're here. And regardless of what relationship you're in and what issues you're having, in the relationship. And today we're talking specifically about narcissistic traits or tendencies. But whenever you find that the relationship isn't right or isn't meeting your needs, it's time to leave. And the sooner you do it, the easier it is. When you wait 6 months, 6 months, sometimes it takes 6 months to figure it out. And, you start staying, when you start seeing red flags, and you continue to stick around, that's when it really starts to get hard. That's when it becomes difficult to walk away, because your emotions, you're continually building a connection with them. And in spite of how toxic these relationships can be, it's we still build a connection. They'll still do things that light up the centers of the brain, the dopamine, serotonin, the oxytocin, and makes us want to stick around. And so, and Teresa says, I don't like emotions that have too much emotions. I'm not sure how to take that one, Teresa. Unless you're talking about extreme highs and extreme lows, those can be wildly disruptive to your life, because when they're on peak highs, it's like, oh my gosh, everything is great and wonderful, and neat and smooth and cool and fine in all respects. And then when they're in their lows, it's like, oh, all hell is breaking loose. It's the end of the world. And so that's a great observation, Teresa. And so those are the wild swings in emotions can be very disruptive in the household, because you never know what's going to happen next. And sometimes that stuff can happen at the snap of a finger. They can be doing just fine, and then all of a sudden, out of the blue, something is said, something is triggered, they see something, they hear something, they smell something, and boom. And it's you just never know what's coming next. And Teresa says, I have too much emotions. I mean, it's not just with happy, but sex and having to deal with crazy. And too much emotion. And yeah, and if I understand what you're saying, yeah, it all aspects of your life get disrupted, and it's from physical intimacy to you're not good enough, or you're not giving enough, or whatever it might be. They are so demanding, and Teresa, I know you're someone that, and we've talked about it, and I think you've shared on Monday Mastery before, that your ex was a narcissist or had narcissistic behaviors. And one of the other things is they insist on having the best of everything, the best car, the best house, the best office. It gets a little crazy. Um, they become impatient or angry when they don't receive special treatment, have significant interpersonal problems, and easily feel slighted. And they and which means that if they're not getting the recognition they think they deserve, they think they're being disrespected, or as I said, slighted. They react with rage or contempt and try to belittle the other person to make themselves appear superior, and have difficulty regulating emotions and behavior. And that's what I was just sharing. There can be these wild roller coasters of emotions, from really high highs to really low lows, and you never know when the trigger's going to when the switch is going to be flipped, and they're going to be off on a crazy tangent, and all of a sudden you're the subject of an abusive tirade. And the first time that happens, you should be packing up and walking out the door, or wherever it is. Just it's time to take you home. And again, it's not just ladies. You're not the only ones that suffer with this. We tend to think of guys as being the culprits here, but ladies do the same thing to men. It's probably more common for the ladies, or maybe it's more common for the ladies for you to speak up. Guys tend to not want to admit they're being abused at home, and that's a tough thing. It's none of us, and none of us want to admit that, or fess up to the fact that we have an abusive home life, and that's exactly what this is. Narcissism, or narcissistic tendencies, is an abusive home life, and whenever it's abusive, you should not stay. And scripturally speaking, it said, it's okay to walk away from that. God doesn't want you in a bad relationship either. So it's time to pack up those bags and move on. And again, part of today's conversation is about giving if you run into a relationship like this. Those of you that have been there know that hopefully you're not going to do it again. You'll recognize the red flags early enough that you're going to say, no, you're a nice guy, maybe, but this isn't my relationship, or this isn't the relationship I'm looking for. Hopefully you'll have the faith and the confidence to be able to do that. And get caught up here. Got a couple of long comments. Teresa says, "May I please don't give yourself to a man, because once they get what they want, you no longer are special or important." This is a great comment, Teresa. They have won, and you are just used. And on to the next. It is really sad how people treat each other. That is not love. That is such a good comment, Teresa. And ladies and guys, don't having sex too early in a relationship. And the studies show that 80% of couples will be in bed on or before the 8th date. So. The longer you wait, the more you get to know somebody, and the deeper you get to know them, and then you get to see the good sides as well as the bad sides. And Vicky says, my self-esteem was pretty much down to nothing before I left. It took me a lot of counseling and time to heal from it. And during your and until you're on your own for a while and out of the relationship, are you able to clearly see what you were living in? That's an awesome observation, Vicky. You have to step back and take some time and heal and recover from this to be able to see the crap that you were putting up with. Because when we're in the midst of it, it's so hard to see. As they say, it's so hard to see the forest through the trees. So it's hey, Nancy, thanks for joining in. So it's so important and I'm going to take a sidebar here. That's the first section, the first module of my course, Dating Made Simple Academy, that it's about getting healthy. If you're in a toxic relationship like this, you have to take time. You can't be diving into another relationship because you're going to set yourself up for failure, or that relationship up for failure, because you're not ready. And as much as we'd love to be loved and be in that relationship, because we're designed to be in relationship with other people, you have to be healthy first. And Vicky points it out so well that it took her a long time to get back to a point where she had self-confidence and saw the value in herself and saw the abuse that she was taking from someone else. And Terry says, guys probably worry people will think they are weak if friends find out they're in an abusive relationship. I think that's very true, and I kind of alluded to that a little bit ago, that guys, we don't want to admit that we're being abused at home. And I've heard stories of guys being beaten with baseball bats and hammers, that because their spouse or their girlfriend just is not wrapped too tight. It may be a narcissist, maybe have mental disorders, whatever it is. But you very rarely hear about those things in from your friends or in the news or any other sources. Hey, Lonnie, thanks for joining in. Excuse me. And Teresa says, after being married 32 years in an abusive relationship, the abuser makes it always your fault. And it was like I was losing my mind. And that's classic narcissism or narcissistic tendencies. I have forgiven, but it's been 6 years and I still have hurt I'm recovering from, especially when kids are also involved. And that can be another problem that and depending if he's really, I don't want to say this, if he's really good at being a narcissist, he will turn your children against you. Or if she's really good at being a narcissist, she'll turn your children against you. And it really is a hurtful, hateful situation. And you're left wondering, what have I done? I've tried to do everything I possibly can, but everything I do, every time I turn around, every step I take, it's wrong. And in most cases, you have to make the right decisions for you and hopefully for your children. But if he's turned them on you, it will in time, hopefully in time, they'll start to recognize what the other partner has done, and that you have to live your life and live a healthy life, emotional life for yourself. A dear friend of mine, I've only known him a couple of years, but he tells stories about his ex-wife and how his ex-wife has turned his daughters against him. And it's just heartbreaking that there's nothing he can really do other than treat them well and show them that what their mother has told them is not correct, is not true. And one daughter has come around a bit, but the other one is still adamantly against her father and just does not want to have anything to do with him. And Lonnie says, I wrote a song about domestic violence. It's called Love Don't Leave a Bruise. Physical and verbal abuse should never be tolerated. Absolutely. And you bring up a good point, Lonnie. And it's both verbal and physical abuse. Now, typically, narcissists aren't going to, and I say typically, at least in the information that I've read, aren't typically going to be physically abusive, but they can be. And this goes for guys as well as ladies, but we hear more about the physical abuse to women than we do to men. But anytime someone lays a hand to you, the first time it happens should be the last time. And I can't state that strongly enough. the first time it happens should be the last time. You should be packing up and walking out that door. And there is no, um, in my mind, there is no forgiveness for that. I mean, that's, uh, I I want to let me roll that one back. Forgiving, yes, but going back, absolutely never, because there's not, they, and they'll come back to you, and narcissists will come back to you, and they'll whine and cry and plead and say, oh, I'll change, I'll do this, I'll do that, I'll do this, and they'll talk you back into coming back. And Vicky says, I always tried to work on myself so that I could be a good parent. Don't worry so much about your kids. Work on your own healing first. Absolutely, and that's what I was trying to say. But I think you said it better, Vicky. When you heal, the kids will start to see what's the changes that happen in you, and I think that's important. And then they'll start to see the difference between you and the other parent. In your case, Vicky, your ex-husband, and the important part is to again take care of yourself, like you said, Vicky, and then let the kids figure out what's happening. Let them see, let them figure it out, especially if they're older. They're teenagers and young adults. Young kids it's going to be difficult for them to understand what's going on, and why mom and dad aren't getting along. They just don't understand all the dynamics and emotions involved, and don't understand the abuse. So it may take until they're young adults, and maybe even mid 20s and 30 somethings, before they come to realize, holy moly, you took a lot of abuse from that guy. And Teresa says, mine was so bad I thought one of us would die, but I did not have a way out. I would have lost my kids. I didn't have a family to go to, or they died, and I hurt every day knowing my kids were hurt. I fought every day, or I fought every day to keep them safe. I don't know really that what love is, and hurts. Not ever knowing what love is. Well, not my kids are great. They're all adults. And Teresa, that's right. And when you were in a relationship that long, and Barbara, you're in a relationship 46 years. I'm guessing neither one of you have been in any significant relationships prior to that, and you spend all that time in a toxic relationship. There's no way you can know what a healthy relationship is like, and that's what this is all about. Monday Mastery is about helping you start sorting this out, and start figuring things out, and putting the pieces together. And hopefully, I'm helping you do that. And Teresa says, I mean, now my kids are great. Yeah, I figured that they're doing well. And Nancy says, kids pick up plenty well. The atmosphere, home environment, they know much more than we realize. And there's a lot of truth to that. But there are, in some toxic relationships, Barbara says true. In some toxic relationships, and especially with a narcissist, the narcissist is so skilled at twisting things and making their significant other the bad guy, so to speak, that it's hard, and it takes digging and very close observation. And with all due respect, until you're into the mid-20s, a lot of times kids don't have that skill level, or that that depth of knowledge and understanding of relationships. I just look at some of the relationships that kids get into, on their own, and then trying to figure out, trying to observe what mom and dad are doing or what's going on with mom and dad's relationship. Um, it's crazy, and it just, as Glenn says, it's crazy. And Barbara says it's absolutely helping. Well, I'm glad. Um, and Teresa says, but my kids and I have gone to counseling for a few years, and that helps. And that's what I mentioned earlier. I think probably before you got on here, Teresa, that if you're struggling with this stuff and struggling to move past it and struggling to get your self-esteem and your confidence back, seek a good counselor. If you don't have one, if you don't know one, let me know. I'd be more than happy to help you search in your area for somebody that's capable of helping you. Or maybe we can find some remote remote counseling for you, where you can do it online, or through a Zoom call or a Skype call, or something along that line. And Teresa says, thank God for counseling. And Glenn says, did not know about this, and and I'm old. Glenn, you're younger than I am, I think. So, but and Glenn, that's a good comment. I'm glad you brought that up. It's never too old. You're never too old to learn new stuff. And it's so important to keep learning. I was thinking on Facebook over the last few days, there's been tons and tons and tons, and even in church this weekend, they presented the seniors to the congregation, high school seniors, and they're moving on to college, and then you've got college graduations. I'm thinking about college graduations, and that's just the beginning of the. We look at exiting college. And, I remember when I got out of college, I knew it all. And it wasn't until about 10 years after college that I realized, holy crap, I don't know it all. And it's become a learning, I've become a lifelong learner since then. There's always something new that I'm searching out. There's always something, whether it's professionally or personally, there's always new things to fill our minds with, good things to fill our minds with. I mean, we can fill our minds with a lot of crap and just become very negative on life, and I'm as guilty as anyone. There are times I find myself being a grumpy old man, and I admit it. And I try to, because you start getting to a certain age, it's like, screw it. It's just leave me alone. And but life is about connecting with people and being around others and being of service to others. And Teresa says, even though I was married to a narcissist, how do you not date another one like I did date a guy, and it was a few months, and his true colors came out. But can you find out maybe in 2 or 3 days? Teresa, that's a great question. And she says, nobody likes grumpy. I know. I know, right? Anyway, but that's a great question, Teresa. In 2 or 3 dates, no. There are signs. And I'm going to take you right back to the very basics, Teresa. Knowing what you want in a relationship, having your must-have list, knowing what your deal breakers are. And your deal breakers and your must-haves are basically your boundaries for any relationship. And when you let somebody violate those boundaries and consistently violate those boundaries, that's on you. As soon as you start feeling your boundaries, your limits being tested, that's the time to question whether the relationship is healthy. And, again, you have your must-have list. If they don't have everything on your must-have list, then it's time to move on. Because every single couple that I've talked to that's been in a soulmate relationship, and I've talked to quite a few of them, they've all said the same thing, that their mate has brought more to the relationship than they ever could have imagined. And they didn't have any of the deal breakers. Does it mean the relationship is perfect? Absolutely not. What it does mean is they're able to communicate and work through their differences and enhance each other's lives. Somebody at some time is going to have to say, yeah, I'm going to have to give on that point, but I know you're going to, and the other person's going to have to give on another point. There are compromises, but it shouldn't be about your boundaries. It shouldn't be about your morals and values. It shouldn't be about your self-esteem. These are all terribly important things to each and every one of us. And if we start giving those things up, we lose control of our lives and put our lives in the hands of others to control. And that's no way to live. And Nancy says, sorry for that little tirade there, LOL, that the second time I've heard grumpy old man. Yes, I can be a grumpy old man. Absolutely. Anyway, I've just noticed it quite a bit lately, and I know there's some personal stresses that I put on myself, and it's just we all get in the frame of mind sometimes, and I'll be happy. I'm happy most of the time, and I have such a good time here talking with you all. Teresa says, I am so simple. I just want to be loved and have so much love to give. I believe if you have God, it is easy. It is so easy to love. It is much easier to love when you have God in your life. I truly believe that. And and she says, "I'll shut up now." No, it's okay, Teresa. We all enjoy your input, and that's what makes that's part of what makes this program interesting. It's every once in a while, somebody comes up and has a lot of input on any particular subject, but you guys have all done a great job of sharing today, and it makes the hour fly by. So I hope this conversation has been helpful for you. If there's any additional information you need, I can send out a couple of things to you, or I can guide you to a couple of good articles on through Google, things that I Googled, and I'd be more than happy to share with you. But when the key is to again start with your must-have and deal breaker lists. And those, again, are your boundaries. And don't let anybody violate your boundaries. Don't let anybody try to tell you that you're wrong for wanting the things that you want in a relationship. Don't let anybody tell you that you're wrong for not wanting them. I've had people tell me, "Oh, you don't know what you're missing." Yeah, with that kind of a comment, I absolutely do know what I'm missing, and I just dodged a bullet. And you all can say the same thing when somebody starts coming at you. Well, you're just, those are the types of people you want to walk away from. The ones that have such a grandiose idea of themselves. We should all realize that we're not everybody's cup of tea. I know I'm not, and I had to learn that the hard way. But there is somebody that I whose cup of tea I will be, just as like Teresa's going to find the guy that's perfect for her, and Glenn and Nancy and Barbara and Terry and who else is on here, Vicky, and we just have to be patient. We have to get ourselves fixed first, and Lonnie and it's. We have to make sure we're all healthy first. It takes it takes time, and unless you're willing to devote yourself to that time, you're going to continue to drag your problems from one relationship to the next. And Teresa says, "Well, I can ask I can ask. I like open and being honest. When do you tell a person what you want? I think you do that, and that's a great question. I think you do that early on. I think you do that within the first 2 or 3 dates. That's where you start setting those boundaries, Teresa. The first date is just to kind of get to know somebody, and so many times you can get a feel for whether there's any kind of chemistry or not. The conversation flows. I had some, from experience, I've had great conversations on online and on the phone with various women, and you meet in person, and it's like, oh, what happened here? There's no connection. So you really don't know until you meet face to face and figure out what's going on. Let's see. Teresa says, and what if you scare them away? And what if you do? It just means they weren't strong enough, or emotionally healthy enough to be with you. And that's okay. The first word out of your mouth should be next. So anyway, well, we'll wrap this up today. And for those of you that have signed up to be beta testers for the dating, let me just do this real quick. And for those of you that have signed up for the beta test on Dating Made Simple Academy, I will be getting information out to you later today or sometime tonight. I finally got all the nuts and bolts put together, and all the links seem to be working. And so I just had to make sure all that stuff was in place and functional. And I had a guy reach out to me this morning that told me even in that banner that I just showed you, he found a mistake in there. So I've got to go back and correct that. That's what beta testing is all about. But if you're interested in finding out more about the beta test, reach out to me, send me a personal message, send me an email, send me a text, send me whatever, however you can reach me. Just reach out and say, hey, Rick, I'm interested. And let me get back to this, comments. And so just reach out to me and let me know, and I'll get that information out to you. We'll be starting the course probably right around the 1st of June. And I'm going to be in the process of doing the last bit of writing tomorrow and starting to record all of the lessons. There's 21 or 22 lessons and some introductions that have to be done. So I've got a lot of recording to do over the next couple of weeks. So anyway, anybody that's interested, let me know. I'd be more than happy to have you as a beta tester, and I will. Your input is going to be very beneficial for me. The whole idea of going through the course is so you can participate and help yourself become more intentional about your dating. And in the same time, you're going to help me and tell me, say, hey, Rick, we could use more of this, less of that, or this is what was effective, this wasn't. And so we can work together to move everybody forward in a healthy into healthy relationships. And that's it. We're at the top of the hour again. So thank you, everybody, for joining in. It was great having you here. The comments were great. I love you guys. Have a great and blessed week, and I will see you next Monday on Monday Mastery.